right? Okay, now that I got your attention, class is in session. All right? So, when we think of heart disease, don't we think of the Hollywood heart attack and like the specific things that should be occurring before we have a heart attack? And do we not think that we're at risk if we've not been told certain things or if we don't experience certain things, right? So I'm getting ready to blow your mind about all that. So if there's a paper in the front of your table, it should have my picture on it, and it has heart health tips. We're going to use that, and hopefully you have a pen because I'm getting ready to give you some juicy details. So I have a quote up there that says, "Be proactive, guard your heart, protect your peace, and embrace a healthy lifestyle." That's a lot, all in that one sentence, right? All in that one quote. Be proactive. So that means that you're acting before anything happens. Guard your heart, protect your peace, and then embrace a healthy lifestyle. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. You ready? All right, so the first thing is heart health. So you see that first block up there? Now, when you were in grade school, how many of you all wanted to get straight A's or good grades? Well, I'm getting ready to give y'all 2 D's, 3 B's, and a C under that heart health, okay? So your 2 D's is gonna be diet and diabetes. So write that down, 2 D's, diet and diabetes. So when we think about our diet right now gets a D because we're not being very conscientious about what we're eating. And Tina spoke of this earlier, and she talked about sugar. Sugar is the one thing that if you could get under control, it will help you to decrease your risk of inflammatory disease, which leads to heart disease, okay? It is the catalyst for a lot of chronic illnesses that we experience. If you could get sugar under control, you would do yourself a good deed. Cancer, heart disease, high blood pressure, all of that, the inflammatory processes. And as African Americans, a lot of our diet, yes, is led by sugar. And then a lot of our autoimmune diseases also go back to the inflammatory processes that we experience, okay? Manufacturers have gotten real crafty with how they position and how they state things. Like Tina said before, she was very consumed with diet sodas. Now, when you hear the word diet soda, don't you think you're doing something good because you're drinking a diet soda rather than the regular soda? Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. It is the absolute worst. They have positioned themselves that we're so busy when we're in the grocery store that we'll only do front label shopping. And I'm gonna show you what we do when we go down the grocery aisle. We're pushing our buggies and we're just looking for the thing that either says low fat, fat-free, sugar-free diet, gluten, all of that. That's all we're looking at on the front of the label as we're shopping. Why? Because we're conditioned to think that that is healthier for us. And we pick that up without turning and reading the label. Just one simple act of flipping your wrist around to read the ingredients and to also read what it contains. If they remove one thing, they replace it with something else, I guarantee you. And there's 3 things that they typically will make sure that your food contains, and that is sugar, fat, and salt. It is called the trifecta, and it will get you to the bliss point, okay? So I know that I said a mouthful, but the main thing is watch your diet and definitely look at the salt and the sugar. The second part of the D is diabetes. Now, some of us have been told that we're pre-diabetic, and you can either write that down, nod your head, or say, yes, I've been told I'm pre-diabetic. And if that is the case, it is most critical for you at this point to really be more conscientious of your diet. So when you're pre-diabetic, what they do is they do a test called an A1C, and that helps them to measure what your blood glucose has been doing over a 3-month period, roughly. And so if that number is elevated or close to being at where the borderline for diabetes, they will call you pre-diabetic. Oftentimes, they will tell you to modify your diet. They won't tell you how or show you how or recommend that you see a nutritionist. Instead, they will just explain that that's what you should do. You have no idea what that means. Usually you'll just do what I said, which is look for sugar-free cookies, diabetic cookies, or low-fat cookies, or whatever, right? You'll start to just be mindful or conscientious of those things when you're shopping, and you won't really change your diet for the things that are most dangerous to you. So again, if you're pre-diabetic, now is the time for you to really get your diet under control, to change things so that you don't become a diabetic and end up on PO, oral hypoglycemics, or insulin, okay? So if you've been told that, now is the time for you to shift that. So why? Why, Delayna? Why? If I'm just pre-diabetic, or why, if I'm pre-hypertensive, do I need to worry about it, right? It's because you are right at that opportunity. You know how they say you in that window of being able to do something about it or not, especially if you've not worked with a coach or if the doctor doesn't recommend someone that you need to work with, right? Because it's very easy for you to kind of like go over that line. And some doctors are getting better at telling you what it is that you need to do or connecting you, but you are right, getting ready to walk right into that next part where once you're on medication, sometimes it's a little difficult to then turn around and get off when you really could be doing some things in that interim, okay? So those are your 2 Ds, diet and diabetes. Your 3 Bs are gonna be your blood pressure. So how many of you have been told that you're hypertensive or pre-hypertensive? You can raise your hand, nod, or write it on your paper. If you are pre-hypertensive, your blood pressure should be below 120 over 80. 120 over 80 used to be the national norm for blood pressure. They've now said pre-hypertension occurs at 120 over 80. Want to know why? Because of what I just told you. We will wait till we 120 over 80 before we do something about it. So instead, they have now decided, no, we're going to call that pre-hypertensive so that you'll act beforehand. So again, they're trying to get us to be a little bit more mindful because we're living in such a very fast-paced, living on the edge society that will wait until we're in the danger zone before we act. Okay, so 120 over 80, you used to kind of like do one of these numbers like, yeah, I'm good, my numbers are great, you know, or I only have the white coat syndrome, I'm good. But no, now if you're 120 over 80, you're pre-hypertensive. Do any of you even know what a blood pressure means? Do you know what that is? I know you know they put the cuff on your arm and they pump it up. Do you know what that number represents? It represents the amount of force that your heart is using to pump. So if your heart is working hard, then your top number, which is your systolic number, will be extremely elevated if your heart is working hard. I want you to imagine a garden hose, right, that has a kink in it, in some portion of that garden hose. And if it's kinked, the same amount of force of blood is trying to get through. But if it's kinked, then what do you think is happening? There's a buildup of pressure somewhere. And that is what's happening, and that's what's occurring in your heart, okay? So that's how hard your heart is working. Like Tina shared with you earlier, she has a leaky valve. When there's a leaky valve, think of that water hose that has a leak in it. It's still the same amount of pressure that's coming through, right? It's just that it's taking a little bit away from it because there is a leak in the valve, okay? Leaky valve heart. So that's your blood pressure. Your blood glucose is what measures your diabetes or your blood, the amount of glucose in your bloodstream. So there is a direct correlation. So ladies, let your ears perk up again. There is a direct correlation between diabetes and heart disease. The correlation is because the high glucose damages your coronary arteries and it damages the nerves to the heart. So that is why 63% of women with diabetes will experience a heart attack, which will ultimately lead to death, right? Or die from coronary artery disease. So if you have, that's why I started out with the D's. If you have diabetes, you are at greater risk, get this, greater risk of dying of a heart disease, okay? So it is very, very imperative that the second B, which is blood glucose, that you keep that under control, all right? So the third B on your report card is your BMI. How many of you in here know what your BMI is? She back there like, oh, Lord. So your BMI, ladies, all right. So this one is, I kind of wax and wane with the BMI. It's one of those things that's kind of been around for forever, and we haven't really paid that much attention to it, more or less. But your BMI should be 25 or less, okay? Now, the reason why that is significant is because that helps to show, and for us ladies, it's always the waist circumference is really what I like to kind of use. A BMI is, like I said, it's like a loosey-goosey kind of number that you can sort of go by. But the reason why it's important and why you want to know is because your doctors and your health insurance company care about what that number is. Okay? So let me just, again, if you listen to nothing else I say, put a star by this on your paper. If you are 25 and over on your BMI, that is when they become concerned and you get in these classes. So 25 and over, you are considered overweight. Okay? Then you move into a category of obesity when you get up about 30, 32. Okay? Then there are classes of obesity. You have obesity class 1, class 2, and class 3. Why do you care about that? Not just because of health reasons, but you care about it because your health insurance determines different things that will happen to you versus me. You understand? So when you go and you see that you are overweight, okay, they'll usually have to have recommendations. It will trigger them to recommend certain things to you. But when you get into that obese class 1, 2, or 3, oh baby, they look at your chart and they say, okay, she's high risk. We're going to determine if it's feasible for us to do this, that, or less risk to do the other. Okay? So yes, when you get into obesity class 2 and 3, and I hate to tell you this, but again, ladies, I work in the healthcare industry, they will determine whether they will approve or even recommend certain treatments and or tests because you are considered a high risk. It is just that serious. They already know the data shows us that you're at risk when you're obese class 2 and 3, right? It'll be a little bit easier for me to run a test on someone like myself who appears to be in shape. Your BMI is this and that. They'll do a cardiac cath on me if I come in there and tell them I'm having the same issues as you or you. But because you're obese class 2 or 3, they might wait a little while, run some other non-discrete tests on you, whereas they will go ahead and do the cardiac cath stent on me versus you. The mortality rate for you is much greater, right? Not fair at all, is it? But it's the absolute truth, which is why we have to be good stewards over our bodies. All right? So that's your heart health piece of it. The next one is the E. This is the one that oh no, I skipped the C. I told y'all brought home 2 D's, 3 B's, and a C. So the C is the cholesterol. That sound familiar? Okay, so cholesterol, there are 2 different cholesterols that they look at, and one is the HDL and the LDL. So which one do you think is the good one? It's the H, right? So think healthy. H stands for healthy. So the HDL is the one that you want to have to be elevated. You want a lot of that floating around in your system. The LDL is the one that you want to have to be a little lower. Now, sometimes there can be genetic predisposition that may make some of those numbers kind of be off. So just, again, know what you're going in there and make sure that your healthcare practitioner gives you the breakdown of anything that may be abnormal or anything that's borderline, okay? So, again, have them tell you the borderline things, even if it's not flagging as high, and the things that are elevated. You want to know everything. I'm talking line by line item. You know how you do when you go in the store and you buy something, they overcharge you for that dress, and you say, that was 30% off? I want you to do the same thing when you go in there for your lab test, right? When you say, wait a minute, that says that normal is 6, to 7.5, and mine is, 5.9. I'm close to 6, so it's a little bit off. I need you to explain to me what that is. How can I get it so that I'm in the normal range, right? I need you to be that in tune with your labs the same way you are when you didn't get that 30% off at Macy's, okay? To be that in tune with it when you go in there to see your healthcare practitioner, okay? So that's your 2 D's, your 3 B's, and your C for the heart health. All right, the E stands for, we all know it, exercise and movement. Now, Candace Camille will tell you a little bit later on, exercise can be fun. It does not have to be something that is so strenuous. Do not be intimidated or discouraged by the gym. I want you to make movement fun for you. What do you enjoy doing? What gets your heart going? What gets your heart elevated out of what we call the BMR? And that's the basal metabolic rate. So right now while you're sitting, you're not out of breath at all, are you? I could pass this microphone around and you could talk without being short of breath. So when we talk about exercise and movement, I need you to move, to do some type of activity that's going to get you panting, okay? Get you to feel, get you to break a sweat. That's what I need you to do. And that can be determined by whatever will make your heart. We're talking about our own hearts, right? So what may get my heart going might not get yours going, right? So do what gets your heart elevated out of that basal metabolic rate, which is your resting rate. That's when you know that you're getting into what we call the fat burning zone, right? So some of us have said, well, I've been to the gym and I don't see nothing happening. How long am I supposed to wait? Well, didn't y'all say I was gonna lose weight? No, and no. Especially not if you didn't get that first D under control. You can't out-exercise a bad diet. You might as well take that burger or them cookies on the treadmill with you. I mean, really, let's just be, it's the truth. So no, your weight loss is not in that gym. It really is not. It is so not in the gym. And I want to be, y'all should see me when I'm in the gym. I'll be wanting to run around and tap the women and say, girl, your weight loss ain't over there. Girl, get off that treadmill. Girl, get off that Stairmaster, because your weight loss is not there if you're not doing what you need to before you walk through the gym, the doors of the gym, or no matter where you're working out, even if you're working out at home. And I always tell people there are two places that you need to visit before you go to the gym, and that is your doctor and the grocery store, okay? You need to know where you're at and then go and do a whole makeover of all the things that I just shared with you. Two places you need to go before you go sign up for that gym membership. Your weight loss is not in that gym. Not that I don't want you to go, but don't go there looking for your weight loss, okay? All right. Yeah, only if Candace commits there, okay? Because she's going to tell everything that I just said. She's going to boop, boop, and say, remember that? Okay, because we're going to work on that. And then she's going to make you point. Anywho. But, so that's your E. So H-E-A. So for the A, this is where you're going to advocate, ask questions, and then raise your awareness, okay? So both of those things we've done. I talked about asking questions. How many of you, when you go to see your healthcare practitioner, ask questions? Or do you let them do all the talking? Great. Oh, great. Okay, good. So when you ask questions, are you just listening or do you write them down as well? The response? Both? Okay. Why do you think you need to not only listen but write it down or ask them to print out something for you?
Yes.
Say it again, say it loud for the people in the back.
Because I don't understand what they be saying.
Absolutely. So that's my point. Okay? So what she said was, I don't understand what they're saying. So it's great that you're asking questions, but if I speak it to you in Spanish and Senegalese, are you going to understand what I'm saying? No. I applaud you for asking questions, but what I need is for you to be empowered. And so to be empowered, you have to have the knowledge of what's being told to you. So it's one thing to go in there and ask questions, but it's because they're going to answer you. Unfortunately, some of them will try to put it in layman's terms, if you will, to make sure that you understand. But if not, you're going to do just what I just did. You're going to bobblehead the whole thing when you know you don't understand not one single word of what's being said. So I recommend either taking someone with you that will, because remember, they're talking about you. So you're really involved in the process because it's your body, right? So I need you to take someone with you that can ask and or answer and or interpret what's being told to you. Because when you leave out of that office, 9 times out of 10, you're only going to remember 30 to 50% of what was shared with you at that particular moment, okay? So that's asking questions, advocating for yourself. Now, how many of you have been to the doctors and they've said something to you and you've taken it as gold? When in your heart and in your mind, you know that it might be something a little bit more. And what I mean by that is, if you go in and you say, well, this just doesn't feel right, and I notice that when I'm walking up and down the stairs, I'm getting short of breath, whereas before I wasn't doing that, and it seems like now I can't, walk a flight of stairs or go from my car to the house and back without having to stop and take a break. I've noticed that I'm getting dizzier, in the morning or in the evening before I go to bed. I know that I'm eating less. When you're telling your doctor all these things and you know that this is different for you, and they're explaining everything away and saying to you that there's nothing wrong, nor recommending that you see a specialist. How many of you in the back of your mind say, I don't believe that and I'm going to go get a second opinion? Are you believing in yourself? I hope all of you. So what I say that to say, advocate for yourself. You know your body best. So my story is that very same thing happened to me. Now I've been going to my healthcare practitioner now probably about 10 years, and she knows me. And so I said to her, and Lisa, you were up here telling part of my story, that I work out vigorously. And I knew that there was something going on. And I kept saying to her, there's something going on. I cannot do my normal rate of exercise without being winded. My diet hasn't changed, everything's the same, but there's something going on. She says, okay, we'll run labs. She ran labs on me finally, after me going to see her 2 times, or sent me for a stress test once, aced that, there was nothing going on there, then finally drew labs on me. Do you know that my H&H, which is your hemoglobin and hematocrit, which measures the amount of iron in your blood, was so low. It was ridiculous. So this went on probably almost 3 months, ladies. 3 months this went on. I did the stress test, and then I did the cardiac, where you wear it for 24 hours, a cardiac monitor. Brought that home so she could see my activity, what I'm doing, when I'm telling her I'm short of breath. So it was like recording everything that I was doing. So I did that. Didn't change my routine, none of it. I even was making notes my own self as to what I was feeling, just in case that thing wasn't recording. I was recording it myself, okay? In case that thing wasn't working. Go back, and I finally get my labs drawn. I had to be rushed to Johns Hopkins Oncology to get a double iron transfusion, because it was so low. But we played around with that. So it was probably low when I first went to see her. So I remember I said this went on for like 3 or 4 months. And it ended up being that low that I had to get a double iron transfusion. And then boom, boom, insert here. Your girl has a reaction to the iron transfusion. And then I ended up going into anaphylactic shock and halfway died. Okay? So all of that transpired when I simply could have been put on some iron supplement long before then, but because we waited so long. So I say that to say, advocate for yourself. You know your body best. I knew then that something was going on. I just didn't know what. So I had to continue to advocate for myself. So advocate for yourself, know what's going on with your body, and then insist that they do further testing so that you can understand, right? Because on that quote, what did I say? Guard your heart. So moving on down to the R. Rest and relax. I'm hitting home with that. How many of you all rest and relax? Ooh, I love it. Miss Yvette, I sure do. Tina, Candace, all of y'all, okay. So rest and relax. That also is going to look different for everyone. What is rest and relax? What is that, right? What does that mean? That means having still moments. It doesn't necessarily mean all the time that you are going to the spa or going to have a massage. Create the space in your home. Create the space in your home. I think, again, sometimes we make things so cumbersome for us that we then try to make it unobtainable. And so therefore we abandon it because we say, oh, I can't do that. I don't have time for that. So make your rest and relaxation whatever that looks like for you. What you're doing right now, I would consider rest and relaxation, right? You're not out there with the Saturday hustle and bustle of things. You're taking time to be amongst other women, to empower yourself, to learn, to have camaraderie, sisterhood. That's rest and relaxation as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to manifest itself in such a way that you feel like you're disconnecting from everything all the time. Rest and relaxation just means that you bring down the demand on your time and attention and what you do. And there's a 3D system that you can do for that, and that's do, delegate, and delete. I like to use that. So you can either do something particular yourself that only you can do, or that you want to make certain is done. You can delegate a task to someone else, because we need to understand that it's okay to allow someone else to do things for you so that it can relieve you of the responsibility. It may not be done the way that you would do it, but it'll get done, and it's okay, all right? I always use the analogy of making your bed. You might fold it a certain way, and then your spouse or someone else, your significant other, might fold it the opposite way. It's okay, it's made, it's done, it's fine. It may not be to your specifications, but it's done, and you didn't have to do it, right? So delegate that task off, and then delete it altogether. How many things are there out there that we ladies don't even need to do, but we'll carry that thing over and over and over, when oftentimes just delete it altogether. Get it off of your plate. There's probably things that we're doing that we don't necessarily need to do, but we feel like an obligation to do it. It's okay. Delete that thing, right? Just delete it. Do, delegate, and delete. So the last part of it is T. So out of all those things that I just shared with you as I wrap up, is take action. One specific thing on that heart health tip that you can do, take action today. Whether it's watching what you eat, decreasing your sugar and salt intake, starting to do some type of exercise that will raise your heart rate, whatever it is, don't become that third woman that had to sit down. Don't become her. Don't become that 76.3 million of women who suffer from heart attack and eventually succumb to that. Don't become that number. Be the standout. Like Tina said, be the standout. Understand what your purpose and your why is. You have the power. Protect your peace and embrace a healthy lifestyle. Go back up to that quote that I had at the beginning. Be proactive, guard your heart, protect your peace, and embrace a healthy lifestyle. That's a mouthful, but it's everything that I just shared with you, and it's obtainable, it's doable. All right? And then the last part of taking action, so that you can follow me, Delayna Watkins, and receive any type of free giveaways and what I call them freebies or gimmies, is texting sugarless to 66866, and I will put you on my monthly newsletter so that I can share more information with you about not only upcoming health empowerment events, but also different things as they change as it relates to your health across the continuum. I thank you for your time and attention, and again, you can follow me on social media at Delayna Watkins and DelaynaWatkins.com.